Welcome to the Ref Room, hockey talk for referees, coaches, players, and fans.
Broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
With your hosts, Smokin, Silz, and Baumruck.
Live.
The Ref Room starts right now.
And now your host.
All right, it is Wednesday. Welcome to the Ref Room, everybody. I am Smokin, Silz, joined by my man Baumruck. Hope you guys are doing well. Deep into the season here. It's it's been interesting. A lot of games, a lot of work.
Yeah, it's been quite the shotgun start in my life. I refereed 42 games in September, 47 in October, and 53 in November.
I got you beat. I got you beat.
I know you do. I know you're like living in the rinks. And you know what? I think one thing I've noticed from a lot of the parents and some of the coaches too, they've been thanking us at our games that we're there. So it's a pleasant surprise, and I'll keep taking it. So anybody that wants to give us more love, thank you very much.
Yeah, we will take the love. I don't know if the love continues after we get there and we start the game, but it definitely there is some love. So we got a nice show for you guys today. We have a very special guest from USA Hockey. And actually, we're going to be a little short today probably because I know Brad's got to jump off. He's got some things going on. But our special guest today runs the ODP. He's part of USA Hockey. He's on the rules committee. I mean, we're going to get some answers today to certain things. And if you want to progress and go further in your career, this is one of the guys you definitely want to know. And that is Scott Zelkin. Welcome to the Ref Room.
Thanks, Scott. It's great to be here. I'm glad to join you guys.
Yeah, well, we've got lots of questions for you, and I'm going to let Brad kick it off because I know I didn't know you were on the rules committee, and Brad informed me of this, and I know he's got some questions we've been wanting to ask for sure.
Well, the one thing, let's start with the rules part, and then we'll cover the ODP afterwards because I think that's the hot button item anyways.
Yeah.
So, Scott, our game has progressively changed in the 23 years that I've been officiating. And since you've been officiating, it's probably been a complete overhaul. So the one thing is a lot of people have the questions on the new hitting standard and where that's coming from. And I know I've been privy enough to hear you speak and some other people speak about it. And this involves the IIHF and it's coming down. And just, give us some insight on it. It's better than us speculating to get the actual insight.
No, for sure, and I'd love to speak to that, and I think it is important, not only that officials maybe know the genesis of this and everything, but also coaches, parents, players, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I started longer than 23 years ago by quite a bit, and the game is much different today than it was back then. But ultimately, the thing that I think is most important when we talk about hitting or body contact is years ago, you used to always hear finish your check or, we'd have those kind of blow up hits. Now, the purpose of body checking, and it's always been the same, but the purpose of body checking is really to separate the man from the puck and gain possession of the puck. I mean, that's ultimately... Hockey is played, and the way the game is developed these days is, teams want the puck on their stick. They want possession. They want to possess the puck. They don't even necessarily dump it in and chase it as much as maybe they used to. And so the purpose of the body checking is to really take the man off of the puck and then gain possession of it. And that's where the emphasis on, for example, USA Hockey's player safety directives and whatnot come from. And so it's meant to, number one, protect the vulnerable player. The idea is you don't want to hit somebody that's vulnerable in a way that could potentially injure them. And I can already hear the people saying, well, you're changing the game and you got to be tough to play hockey and all of those things. And that doesn't change. Toughness is still a part of the game, but ultimately, and you talked about my role on the USA Hockey Playing Rules Committee. A lot of the body checking standards that we have now within USA Hockey, those didn't come down from officials. Those came down from the people on the player development side of the game. those are the people that, when we talk about trying to develop hockey players on the whole, the goal is to develop good hockey players, and the purpose to do that is to possess the puck. So when we talk to officials about, what are legal body checks, what versus what are not legal body checks, body checking is still allowed. Body contact is still allowed. But what we want to get away from are the punishing hits that are purely designed to punish an opponent, that are to take advantage of a vulnerable player where could you put your body on him and get possession of the puck? Yeah. Or could you try and drive him into the fourth row in an illegal manner, whether it's from behind or up high to the head or things like that? That's what we're trying to get out of the game.
So basically, any hit that Dustin Byfuglien makes in the NHL that everybody cheers at.
Well, you know what? I mean,
That's a different game, though.
And I think that's really an important thing to talk about, though, because it is a totally different game. And in the National Hockey League, there are opportunities where a player with the puck puts themselves in a vulnerable position and is hit, and that's that player's fault. It's not the player that's delivering the hit's fault. Whereas in USA Hockey and pretty much every other level there is, the onus is always on a player to avoid the body check. The onus is always on the player delivering the body check to avoid hitting a player in the numbers, to avoid hitting a player in the head. And so, yeah, I mean, we joke Dustin Byfuglien's a big giant man, and he's going to hit people hard. And certainly at the local level, at the high school level, at the U7, U18 level or U16 level where body checking is allowed, you have bigger players versus smaller players. But within our game, the onus is always on the player delivering the hit to make sure they do so in a legal manner. And I think that's really important.
We use the term, and I know I've done it a million times, and you just did it. Explain a blow-up hit, because I don't think we've ever actually explained it. I know referees throw it around and say it a lot, and I've never really thought about it till now, just listening. So can you explain that definition? I know what it is, but for everybody else?
I think the best way I would explain a blow-up hit, and you're not going to find that definition in the glossary of the USA Hockey Rulebook or any other rulebook, it's the vulnerable player that might be unsuspecting that is hit in a manner that is designed to punish. It's not designed to gain possession of the puck. It's designed to punish that player physically. And that's what I would say is a blow-up hit.
I would agree. It's the hit that the guy makes at center ice, but yet the puck goes 40 feet past him, and they just hit the player.
Yeah.
There was no reason for it, Back to the rule
it's
is
the guy skating next to the player that has the puck from his same team, and the one that doesn't have the puck gets driven into the ports.
Right. and I think exactly. And the thing we talk about, especially at the youth level and through the Declaration of Player Safety, Fair Play, and Respect is, there's lots of talk about, and I think the thing I want to emphasize is the Playing Rules Committee, the Player Development Committee, they don't want to take body checking out of the game. They don't want to take the physicality out of the game. But once again, what's the purpose? You talk about stick on puck. You know what? Stick on puck isn't a term that got bandied about 30 years ago. Nobody ever talked about stick on puck. But if you're trying to deliver a hit and your stick's up here and you're running through a player, are you really trying to gain possession of the puck? No. That's why, when we talk with the player development people, it's if you're truly trying to gain possession of the puck, you're probably going to have stick on puck. That's going to be your focus.
Right. I understand that 100%. I was there the year that you guys were debating all this, and, everybody was super passionate about it. And then I remember, what if the guy doesn't have a stick? And then, two guys were like, well, then they're standing up and they're like, kind of running into each other. It was a very interesting conversation to see, and I couldn't imagine what goes on behind the closed doors. But it was interesting to see, and I've been a big proponent of telling people this wasn't done lightly. There's a lot of people involved, and they care about it, and some people were getting upset, and you could see it on their face, but it ultimately all worked out, But it's good to see that the people do care that are making the decisions up there. It might be an inconvenience for us as officials for the first couple of years, but the same thing happened when we went to enhanced enforcement. In my mind, that was a total game changer.
No, for sure. And you're talking about, to a certain extent, maybe changing the culture. But it's interesting, and you briefly touched on, I've been fortunate enough to do a number of different things with the IIHF around the world. And I happened to be at the World Juniors last year in Edmonton, locked in a bubble for 30 some odd days. And the U.S. junior team won the gold medal there against what, leading into it, was quote unquote arguably the best Canadian junior team in the history of the World Junior Championship. And there are a number of players on that U.S. team that are now, one of them had probably one of the coolest goals you'll ever see scored last night in with Anaheim, Trevor Zegras, where he flipped the puck over the net. He was on that team. Cole Caulfield was on that team. And you know why they won that gold medal is they were extremely skilled. They played physical, but they were skilled. And at the end of the day, the other thing I guess I'd touch on here is USA Hockey's goal. We are an organization of hundreds of thousands of hockey players. A very small majority are going to be delivering body checks at the National Hockey League or the American Hockey League level. And we're trying to promote safety. We're trying to promote respecting the game and fun for all of those hundreds of thousands of people. And when you think about the goal is it being safe and being fun for everyone, that's a real big driving force. And that is part of those discussions that go on when you talk about eliminating blow-up hits, protecting vulnerable hockey players. Because I'm going to guess the player that's vulnerable with his head down, that's fumbling with the puck, that gets blown up as a 15-year-old probably isn't really that excited about coming back to the game.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Well, let me ask you this question, because in my mind, I don't understand why we allow checking at any age level when it comes to like house league and maybe a step above house league, because a lot of times you have guys that just want to play hockey. They think it's a cool sport, but you have a 220-pound Bantam that's going after a kid that's like 80 pounds and he just wants to crush him. Of course, he's going to get a penalty, but that doesn't stop him from getting injured, and it doesn't stop that poor kid from being out of hockey, a game that he obviously really wants to play and enjoy. And if he was playing men's league, there's good men's league hockey that you can play as no check. So I personally would like to see house league not have hitting, and maybe a step above house league. That's my opinion.
I think that's a good point. That point gets made on a regular basis. The one thing I would say is, body checking isn't mandatory. That's up to individual associations, individual affiliates. There's nothing that prevents those, affiliates from saying, or local associations saying, you know what, we're going to have a no check house league or a no check rec league. There's a lot of people that think that's a good idea. I think, I think there's some merit to that. And that's certainly an option out there.
Well, I got a couple more questions that, we could go into, as long as we're on the subject of penalties. The penalty times were changed this year and reduced from 2 minutes down to minute and a half or minute. But yet I find it very interesting. The majority of the leagues that we work are still going with 2-minute penalties. What's your thoughts on that? I know it was a recommendation, but you have AAA that's pretty much playing the minute and a half penalty at the Bantam level. But yet you have high school that stayed with the 2-minute penalty. You even have guys that are playing like Central States, 13-minute periods, and they still want the 2-minute penalties. Any thoughts on that? Or
well, the reason it came around once again, and this is, and I'm going to say this one more time and then I won't say it again. This isn't a bunch of officials sitting around deciding to change the rules. Because I think sometimes as officials, we get blamed or, oh, you guys changed this rule. Well, at the end of the day, the Playing Rules Committee, which then makes recommendations to the board of directors, only has a few quote unquote true officiating people on there. And so the player development side of things, and the reason they were reduced was if you're only playing a 13-minute period, 2 minutes is a bigger proportion of time on off of the ice. So the idea is, a 2-minute minor penalty in a 20-minute hockey in a 20-minute period is, according to my math, a good proud New Trier grad is 10% of the period, right? 2 minutes 2 minutes out of 13 minutes is much more than 2% or 10%. Is it necessarily fair to the player? And so, I guess I would say, it's individual leagues' choices because they want to be like the big guys. Yeah. But once again, it's not the National Hockey League. You're not playing 20 minutes.
You got a squirt kid that trips a kid with the stick. It's stick against skate. Does he really need to sit like 20% of the period for that? I'm totally agree with you on that. But I think it's interesting. A lot of the leagues have not adapted that, and they some of them have even asked for exemption to, still stay with the 2-minute penalty. They didn't want to change.
Hey, Silz, remember when we got the winter meeting, the proposed rules?
Yeah.
We got them. We were lucky enough. Somebody gave them to us, and this was one that me and Scott called me. He's reading it. I don't know. I think it was like in a morning or something like that. He calls me up. He goes, "Why are they changing the penalty times?" And I'm like, I don't know. And I hung up with him, and I was thinking about it, and all of a sudden, that's what I thought of. I'm like, it's got to be a proportion thing.
Yeah.
Because if not, I go, it's somebody much smarter than me doing it.
Once again, right? We're talking about fun. Hockey should be fun. How much fun is it to sit in a penalty box for 2 minutes as a young player for, you broke the rules, but is it a lot of fun? No.
Let's get my 10-year-old down here. He's in there a lot.
He's been spending a lot of time in there. There's a lot of photos on Facebook of him sitting in the penalty box.
Sounds like he's a referee in waiting.
Yeah, what's funny is he really wants to already, so it's kind of amazing. But no, we had to have a little conversation, so that kind of calmed down over the weekend. All right, but hey, Scott, just so we make sure that we get it in, and then we can have a Q&A at the end. All right, so the big question is the ODP. What is the ODP? I throw it around because I know what it is.
Eric asked that question. I'm going to put the question up here so everybody can see it. How do you get into the ODP, and why don't you elaborate? What is the ODP?
There you go.
What's the whole route that you go here, the progression, and where it can take you?
Okay, so I'm going to try and do this in 5 minutes. And ODP stands for Officiating Development Program. The full name of the program is the Junior Officiating Development Program. And what the ODP is this program is run by USA Hockey. It is the elite development program to train, coach, and develop the best amateur officials in the country with the purpose of moving them on to higher levels of hockey, such as professionally, potentially Division I college hockey, potentially the IIHF, international hockey, and things like that. We assign the majority of the junior hockey in the country, including the best junior leagues, the United States Hockey League, which is the only Tier 1 junior league in the country, which annually has 50 plus NHL draft choices in it. We assign all of the officials in the North American Hockey League, which is the only Tier 2 junior league in the country, as well as a decent amount of the Tier 3 junior hockey. And what it is it's a program, like I said, really to train and coach our best young officials who have a passion for the game, want to advance to the higher levels. So they might go to the Blackhawk game last night, and one of the officials on the ice last night was he's not a kid, an adult by the name of C.J. Murray. C.J. Murray was working in the USHL last year. He's now on the ice in the National Hockey League at the United Center last night. They might watch the World Juniors this coming Christmas time, and they might see one of the 3 American officials that have been assigned to the World Juniors and will be in Edmonton and Red Deer. All 3 of those officials worked within our program with the goal of moving up. So we take officials. We don't take officials before they're 18 years of age, but we'll take them from 18 on up. We'll give them the opportunity to work at the Tier 3 junior level once they've proven they can handle that level, they'll work at the tier 2 level, and then they'll move up to the USHL. Once they've proven the ability to work those levels, and junior hockey, you're going to see some crazy things in junior hockey. But it's a really good brand of hockey. At the USHL, places like, the Steel is arguably the best organization over the last handful of years in the USHL. They've got a ton of great hockey players. You can go to places like Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where might average 7,000 to 10,000 fans on a weekend night. That in itself is a new experience and gets officials ready for that higher level. We have coaching. There's what we might call supervisors, but what we call within our program officiating coaches. We have guys combined with 6,000 man work games in the National Hockey League, as well as some of the best amateur officials in the country that travel around, watch officials, and are coaching them up. And as part of that program, we might have officials that have committed because our footprint in the USHL is in the Midwest. The North American League is everywhere from Alaska to Texas to Maine. They might come and live in league-sponsored housing during the season to where they really immerse themselves in the game and are working a tremendous amount of hockey. So that's what the program is. And we're proud to say almost every American hire by the National Hockey League has come through our program. Almost every official working a Frozen Four has come from our program. Every official assigned to the IIHF within the last few years has come through our program. So that's what the program is. Now, to answer the question of how do you get in, there's a few different ways to get in. And we are always looking for officials. We're always looking, not only do we need officials like everywhere else, because there's a lot of hockey out there, but you know what? We want that official that's passionate. We want that official that wants, and look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being the best or wanting to be the best Pee-wee referee in an area. That's fantastic. And those are the guys out of the 25,000 officials within USA Hockey, 24,700 of them are what keep this game going. But what we're looking for are the 300, 200 officials that want to move to that next level. They want the challenge of working at that high level. And the way we do that is we're constantly scouting. We're constantly talking to people such as Brad and other people around the country as to who are the up-and-coming best officials. Those officials will reach out to us, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then we hold a prospects camp in Buffalo, New York, during the summer player development camps, and those dates were just released. There was a press release earlier this week. July 15th through the 20th, in conjunction with the Select 15 Festival in Buffalo, we hold a prospects camp where we bring in anywhere from 40 to 60 officials that have an interest in the program. And quite frankly, it's a tryout. And we'll watch them work. We'll run them through, classroom sessions and stuff. And we'll give them that opportunity. And officials can get there through a few different ways. There's on USA Hockey's website, there's an ODP page or JODP page. And there's a place where you can email me and look for more information, and we get you into our system that way. People reach out directly to me and my email address, and I don't know if you have the ability to put this into the chat, but my email address is scottz@usahockey.org. And if they reach out, and what we do is, we ask them to give us some references, provide us with a resume, because you have to have a certain, there's certain, I guess, what I would call requirements or minimum requirements to be a part of the program. And those requirements are, you have to be a good skater. You have to be an athlete. If you're not an athlete in this day and age, you're not going to be successful at a higher level. So you've got to be able to skate. If you don't know what it's like at the junior level, for those of you watching here, and if you're in the Chicago area, go to a steel game. Watch those guys move up and down the ice.
Yeah, it's
You've
a
got to be
lot.
able to keep up. You've got to be able to do that. And honestly, that's the requirement. That and a willingness to learn, a willingness to be a good teammate, to be able to interact well with other people, and then a willingness to learn, to be a sponge. Because we may take an official and say, okay, this is what you do at in the beginner manual or at the level 1 seminar. But now if you're going to move to that higher level, we've got to take you to the next level. And the willingness to maybe change, try some new things. Those are the requirements as well. But our prospects camp is the best way to get involved, or talk to people either in the program or locally about getting in touch with me and saying, hey, I've got an interest. And that's kind of the entryway.
Yeah.
So maybe a little more than 5 minutes, but that's kind of the whole spiel.
No, it's
You know, the one thing, Scott, that I can suggest to all the referees interested in doing this is, number one, you got to be very good at self-evaluating. Self-evaluate yourself. And if you have some doubts or something, go to somebody that you trust or somebody that, you think you can trust and ask them. Just be prepared to hear what they're going to tell you, good or bad. And it's not that anybody above that when you've ever asked. I remember the first time I wanted to go to the ODP stuff, and I was told, well, you need to do this and that. And okay, well, I still got an invite. I went the first year, and this was a long time ago, so let's skip it. But I was told at that camp, I got the highest score on the test, which, do you guys still do testing at the prospect camp?
You mean like a rules test?
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I figured you did, but it's been a long time. Yeah. So, the rules test, and that, I had a good on-ice presence, but here was the number one kicker. You're fat. That's what they told me, straight to my face. But, in the parting grace, they said, here's what we'll do. We'll have some people keep an eye on you. And if by Thanksgiving of this season you get in shape, a much better shape, we'll give you your first couple of assignments, and we'll see how you do. Well, let me tell you, I hit the gym, and I hit it hard. And I ran every day, and I started lifting in order to build muscle mass, and I got in there, and by Thanksgiving of that year, I was like a twig. Like, I was really thin. And, I all of a sudden, out of the blue, got a phone call. Hey, heard you lost all that weight. We got a game for you.
nice.
So, that's how I got in. So, and it was told to me by my locals I needed to work out harder. Nobody just said that you're too fat. So,
Hey, the schedulers are going to call you if you lose a couple more pounds. They might have a men's league game for you.
but it's one of those things. Just be good at self-evaluating. I still do it after the 23 years after I get off the ice. And there's still things every once in a while I'll be driving home and I'm like, did we do that right? Like, and you get home and you open up the book and you go, okay, I was right, but I'm still thinking about it, because the worst thing you can do is mess something up because you were underprepared or not trying to be prepared.
I think that, as we think about this, and we talk with our officials every year about this, but when I look at the most successful officials and the officials that maybe are at this level at the beginning, at a lower level at the beginning of the year, and take that big jump during the season, those are the officials that are the best self-evaluators. They're the most self-motivated. And when I look at all of our really successful officials, they all have that quality. And that's a great point that you bring up, Brad, is, we're going to have an officiating coach in the building at our officials games 30 to 50% of the time, which is great. And that's good. But if officials walk off the ice and they work on a Friday night and they get in the car after the game and they go home and they don't think about it and they don't think about what they could have done better, they're not going to get a whole lot better, because and it probably goes in life in general, the most successful people are able to look back and be very good self-evaluators and say, how can I change things to always get better? And I think that's That's a character trait of all of our best officials and most successful officials, no question. And then the other thing is, we'll bring officials in and you talk about maybe them giving you the hard truth in a less unvarnished way, or in an unvarnished way about your physical fitness at that time. We have plenty of very successful officials that their first year at our prospects camp, we said, you know what, you need to go back home, get more experience, become a better athlete, become a better skater, and we're going to see you back here in a year. And they come back in a year, and those are some of our best officials as well. So sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and it's a big jump from that local pond, wherever your local pond is, to now competing against the best officials somewhere else in the country and saying, I want to be part of this group. And you don't realize what it takes. And then when you realize it, you go back, you do the work, and then you fit in really nicely.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the one thing about the prospect camp, too, that a lot of people don't know is if you do get the chance to go, you get the invite and whatever, learn something while you're there, okay? Because they're teaching you constantly the entire time. You've had that experience to go out to these camps. It's just like the USA, the other camps, but even at this prospect camp, you can learn a lot, and you can learn from your fellow officials while you're there too, just by conversation, and then bring it back to your association and share it. That's the biggest thing.
For sure. And you talk about the other camps. I mean, the Central District runs a great camp. That's before our prospects camp. Other districts, Rocky Mountain runs a great camp. The Atlantic District runs a great camp. And then you have your futures camps that USA Hockey runs. All of those things lead into officials becoming better officials. And that's so important.
So to make sure we have the progression correct, you probably should start at the ADP program. And then
no doubt.
You start there, and then it's off to district camp. Central District camp would be your next step in the progression. And from there, USA Hockey will find you if you've got what it takes.
100%. Yep. And I think that's really important. And I'm glad, Scott, you brought that up. But yeah, I mean, the ADP program that IHOA runs that's pretty much required for us, because you need to get that background, that foundation. I look at guys like Jack Young. I look at guys like Shane Gustafson, Anthony Victor, just to name three, Erica Rigo, guys that came through that program. They were prepared to come in and take that next step. And that's so important.
And those guys are all great guys. They're all good people. And they all work
and
really
that's
hard.
most important. They're fantastic.
They make us look good. Yep.
Well, and they're fantastic teammates. And I will tell you that the other part of it is we have no time for somebody that's not a good teammate. I don't care how good you are. And we've had, and we won't go through those guys, but there are lots of good officials that we want nothing to do with because they're lousy teammates. Because at the end of the day, they're not going to represent themselves, where they come from, or what we're trying to do in the right manner. And that's really important as well.
So, Scott, you worked in the NHL for many years. You did over 1,000 games, if I'm correct.
I worked well over 1,000 games at the professional level. I did not hit 1,000 games in the NHL.
Over 1,000 games on there. I was like, did you think the game would have changed like it has when you were doing games back in at the professional level? It's changed quite a bit over time. The athletes are so much better and stronger and faster. I mean, you get a bantam AAA kid that's 14 years old. Oh my gosh, these guys they're so good. They're so skilled. They can do it all. It's amazing. What are your thoughts and where we're headed?
It is. It's. I think back. I was fortunate enough, and yes, I worked in the National Hockey League. I started in the old International Hockey League as a 19-year-old back in the mid '80s, and it's just a different game. I mean, it's the speed, the skill, like you talk about, and I think it's funny. I I look at games like at the USHL level now, or the North American League level, or even at high school level. Athletes are so they're athletes. They're athletes year round, whatever sport it is, and so their training is at such a different level. And we could spend a whole hour talking about specialization and whether that's good, bad, or otherwise, and we won't go down that road. But the training that these athletes have now is so totally different, and it just translates as you go. It translates as you go up the ladder to where they're just so much better, and the game is faster. And yeah, there's more of an emphasis on skill. When I started, every team had 2 or 3 guys sitting on the end of the bench, and their purpose wasn't really to score goals. Their purpose was to do other things on the ice, and those guys couldn't play nowadays. And nowadays, like we talked about it earlier, toughness is how you handle the puck. And yeah, fighting happens once in a while, and we're not going to go down that road either right now. But if you can't skate, if you can't handle the puck, if you can't do all of those things, you're not going to play. And I look at the game. My kids watched a video of one of my first games in the NHL a while back, and my son, who's now a senior in high school, he looks at me and goes, "Dad, that looks slow. That looks like one of the high school games I go watch my friends play at now." And I'm like, yeah, it was. And it's just a different world, and it's fun to see the progression of the game, and that's just the natural thing. And it was cool to be a part of it, but it's a much different world now than when I was on the ice.
I want to throw a comment in because we have former NHL referee Bob Langdon checking in. He says it's good to see that USA Hockey puts the effort, money, and time in developing officials. It kind of clicked off. Let me get it back there. That's why they have made so many great strides in hockey. Canada is falling way behind, especially in developing officials. And he also said Scotty Z was a good hire for them. So
well, Bob's a good man, and I appreciate the comments. I won't. Canada does their thing. I think the thing that we're fortunate for in the U.S. with USA Hockey is, there is a commitment to try and develop officials, and that's, we're proud of the guys that are successful and appreciate the kind words.
So let me just throw this out there. We've only got a few minutes left before Brad has to step off here, but we do have a referee shortage around the country right now. What are some of the things that USA Hockey is working on in order to try to help with that? And, do you see it getting better? I mean, a lot of it was discussed that, it was zero tolerance, problems with coaches or parents. Is it a money issue for the referees? Is it just we don't have enough people? Is it the game has become too fast and too hard for somebody to become a beginner and go into the sport if you're not an athlete to be able to work the games that need to be covered? Give me your opinion on what USA Hockey thinks and the direction we're headed with that.
So once again, we could have a whole show on this, but it's
what are you doing next Wednesday at noon?
Yeah, exactly. So here's what I'll say. We do have a shortage. I'm not going to sit here and say there's not a problem. There is a problem. It's not just an officiating problem. It is a whole host of issues, and there was an article in the Washington Post yesterday talking about officiating and how officials are quitting, and it talked about hockey, but it talked about other sports. USA Hockey recognizes this, and I am actually part of, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I am part of a 12-person task force that the president of USA Hockey, Mike Trimboli, named to address this issue. And the task force is made up of a couple of staff members, a couple of affiliate presidents, and some other people, some other members of the board of directors. And we are looking at everything, and it has to do with retention. It has to do with the culture of the game. It's going to have to do with abuse. And we're looking at all of those issues. And so what I will say is USA Hockey acknowledges there's a problem. And USA Hockey it's got the attention at the higher levels, and they're working towards trying to do something. And we're going to come back with some recommendations that we think will help all of that. And look, USA Hockey gets This year we have 25,000 officials, and I'm looking at my numbers.
Is that up or down, Scott?
So here's what I can tell you, and this is we right now, as of yesterday, we had 23,500 officials registered, which is down about 5,000 from 2 years ago. Now the pandemic hurt things. Out of that, we have about 17,000 that are complete, which means they've finished everything.
So
That number is
17,000 complete referees around the country that are eligible to work USA hockey games right now.
right. 2 years ago, we had 20,500 complete. Okay, so out of that, 8,000, give or take, and these are very rough numbers, are brand new level 1 officials.
So
We
8,000 of the 17,500 are new officials, level 1.
Correct.
Whoa.
Yep. Okay.
Wow.
Which is
Wow.
fantastic. Here's the challenge. We lose 50% of that 8,000 every year. They don't come back for year 2.
Yeah.
Why don't they come back for year 2? They don't come back for year 2 for a whole host of reasons. They don't come back because they can't get games. They don't come back because of abuse. They don't come back for a lot of reasons, right? If we could keep those, and what we discovered is if we can keep an official for 3 years, we're going to keep them. And they're going to be our longer term officials. So there's always been a challenge with higher level, more quality officials at the higher levels. We've got to get them from year 1 to year 3. Do we need to, and we're looking at things such as better mentoring programs. We're looking at things about trying to encourage associations, instead of piling all your games on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Maybe Winnetka can go play Wilmette on a Wednesday night. Maybe Skokie can go play Evanston on a Wednesday night.
You're preaching to the choir here. Trust me.
So now maybe that young 14-year-old official who's playing, and we want them to keep playing, maybe that official can go work that 7 o'clock game on a Wednesday night and get more experience. So the task force is looking at all of these different things, including abuse, which is a huge, huge issue. And so USA Hockey's, and I'm a member of this, so I'm going to sit here and say it. I believe we're going to make some positive recommendations and try and make some positive steps moving forward, because if we don't change the culture, if we don't change these things, they're going to, and I'm glad to hear, Brad, parents and coaches are thanking you for being at these games, because we've got to do a lot more of that. Otherwise, it's only going to get worse and it's not going to get better.
I agree. That was well said. I'm going to say it myself, just so you know.
And I'm excited about what we're going to do, because I'll tell you, and listen, it was easier. It was easier to deal with the abuse in the National Hockey League than it was a couple of years ago when I was working a Scored House League game in Niles and had a fan in the stands giving me the finger. That's
Isn't that amazing?
And unfortunately, as a guy that's a little over 50, it didn't faze me. But that 14-year-old young official that's with me, why do you want to come back and do it? You don't.
The problem is, at the squirt peewee level, the lower, the house, the silver, whatever you want to call it, that's where I think a lot of the abuse occurs. I mean, at high school level, if you're working high school varsity, you probably have some rapport with maybe one of the coaches at least, because you've done enough games, you've seen them. They know what to expect. You know what to expect. They know they're going to see you again. It's easier than working the lower levels where these guys are like losing their mind thinking that they're going to become an NHL coach overnight. And they forget that while their squirt player doesn't know where to line up in the second period on the right side of the ice, the official that's working his game that's 12 or 14 years old is learning too. And that's where there seems to be a big divide. I mean,
and that's why we've got to get those officials from year 1 to year 3 or year 4. And that's the challenge. And I'm sorry, I've yet to see the Stanley Cup at a Scored House League game. But I digress.
Tell it to little Johnny's dad. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, Scott, we can end this. That's a positive note. That there's somebody looking into it. Somebody's going to come back with some suggestions. Hopefully, it'll get better for us. So
I know Brad's got to jump off. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. I hope we can continue this conversation and do it again, because we could keep you here for a good hour and a lot longer than that. Well, but, we'd love to cover a couple more of these topics, especially because, you are a direct link to USA Hockey, obviously, and the Rules Committee. And these are some questions that we definitely have, occurring all the time here. So
I would look forward to coming back and really thank you guys for having me. And it's been a pleasure.
No, thank you for your time.
Thank you for everything always, Scott. I appreciate it.
All right, that's going to do it for us, guys. If you'd like to support the channel, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/refroom and contribute. You can buy us some caffeine. We'd love to have some. Keeps us awake here. And besides that, we just love doing this and enjoy the conversation with you guys. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Scotty Zelkin, USA Hockey, former NHL referee. This is the guy you need to know if you want to move on. He is the one that's going to get you there. Brad as well, because Brad's your starting point. If you want to get and go, you start with Brad, and Scott, Brad will connect you to everybody else along with Scott. So thank you for joining us today. Guys, have a great week. We'll see you here next week, next Wednesday, starting at noon. Peace out.